Okay, so get this, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries is claiming that Elon Musk, like during his Doji effort?
Doji effort.
Yeah, that's what we're calling the whole Twitter crypto saga, apparently.
Great.
He accessed the federal government's payment system.
Wow.
And not just peeked at it. Like, he
No.
had full-on access.
Mm.
So we've got a whole stack of sources here, official congressional records, a glossary of legislative terms, even a statement from Congressman Jeffries himself.
Okay.
And it's all tied to this proposed bill, H.R.8292, the Taxpayer Data Protection Act.
Interesting.
Jeffries is sounding the alarm,
Yeah.
calling this a dangerous invasion of privacy, and pointing fingers at House Republicans.
Oh.
Something doesn't add up here.
Well, it's certainly a bold claim, and it raises a lot of questions.
Like what?
Well, was there really unauthorized access?
Right.
And what exactly is in this central payment system Jeffries keeps mentioning?
Yeah.
And then what does this all mean for our own data privacy?
You sent us Congressman Jeffries' statement on this, so let's dive into that first.
Okay.
He doesn't hold back, does he?
Not at all.
Yeah.
He calls the alleged access an invasion of privacy.
Right.
And unconscionable.
Yeah.
Especially since it happened, according to him, with absolutely no notice to the American people.
That's a pretty big deal.
It is, if true.
Yeah.
Imagine your most sensitive financial info.
Oh, yeah.
Tax returns, Social Security details, accessed without your knowledge.
Scary.
Very unsettling.
Yeah, it is unsettling to think about.
Yeah.
So what's Jeffries actually proposing to do about it?
Well,
This Taxpayer Data Protection Act.
Right.
What's the gist?
So on the surface,
Okay.
H.R. 8292 seems like a pretty standard bill.
Okay.
According to the overview from Congress.gov, it was introduced back in May 2024.
Okay.
And aims to increase criminal penalties for anyone who unlawfully discloses taxpayer information. But, if we look at it through the lens of these allegations,
Right.
it takes on a whole new urgency.
Right, because now it's not just some hypothetical threat. It's potentially a real breach that's already happened.
A real breach that's already happened. Yeah. Jeffries is basically saying,
Yeah.
we need to lock this system down tight. He wants to make sure anyone accessing this system has legal authorization,
Okay.
a proven track record, the necessary security clearance,
Right.
ethical commitment, no conflicts of interest.
Wow.
And get this,
What?
he even wants mandatory cybersecurity training.
Whoa. Mandatory cybersecurity training for anyone touching this system.
For anyone.
That's a pretty strong statement.
It is.
It feels like he's really trying to emphasize that this isn't just about punishing the bad guys after the fact.
Yeah.
It's about preventing these breaches from happening in the first place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Remember that line in his statement?
Yep.
About those with personal financial conflicts of interest?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's a direct jab at Elon Musk and his diverse business ventures.
Yeah.
Is there a potential conflict with someone like Musk, who's involved in so many different sectors,
Right.
having access to this kind of sensitive financial data?
It definitely raises eyebrows.
It does.
Yeah. It also makes you wonder if this really happened under the radar.
Yeah.
What else don't we know about how our data is being used?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And it gets to the heart of why this bill is so important.
Okay.
Jeffries isn't just trying to beef up penalties. He's demanding transparency.
Okay.
He wants Congress and the public to be notified
Right.
if any unauthorized access occurs.
So basically shining a light on the whole system.
Exactly.
Okay.
And making sure there are checks and balances in place.
Got it.
Now let's take a look at where this bill actually stands in the legislative process.
Okay.
According to Congress.gov, it cruised through the House of Representatives
Okay.
with a voice vote on September 17th, 2024,
Okay.
and then landed in the Senate's lap the very next day.
Hold on. Voice vote?
Yeah.
Does that mean they literally just shouted yay or nay and called it a day?
It's a little more nuanced than that.
Okay.
A voice vote is typically used when there's overwhelming agreement on a bill.
Okay.
So the presiding officer basically judges the volume of yays and nays
Right.
and declares the outcome.
Okay.
It's faster than a roll call vote
Right.
where they record each individual vote.
Right.
In this case,
Yeah.
it seems like the bill had enough support in the House
Okay.
that no one demanded a recorded vote.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So it sailed through the House?
it did.
What happens now that it's in the Senate?
Right.
Does it go straight to the president's desk?
Not so fast.
Okay.
The Senate has its own set of rules and procedures, and things can get a lot more complicated there.
Right.
But before we get into that, I think we need to unpack some of these legislative terms we keep throwing around.
Yeah, agreed.
This glossary you've included is helpful because,
Yeah.
let's face it, introduced
Yeah.
past the House
Right?
report.
Yeah.
This stuff can sound like a foreign language sometimes.
It really does. It's like we need a decoder ring just to understand what's going on.
Exactly.
So let's break down the life cycle of a bill.
Okay.
Where does it start, and how does it eventually, hopefully, become law?
So every bill starts as an idea.
Okay.
In this case, it seems like Congressman Jeffries' concerns about taxpayer data security, fueled by these allegations about Elon Musk,
Right.
sparked the creation of H.R. 8292.
Okay, so he has the idea.
Right.
How does it actually get transformed into a formal bill?
Well, first he has to draft the bill,
Okay.
outlining its purpose and the changes it proposes to existing law.
Okay.
Then he has to formally introduce it.
And that's where the hopper comes in, right?
The hopper.
Yeah. I saw that term in the glossary, and it sounds kind of
Yeah,
neat.
it is.
Yeah.
The hopper is a literal wooden box on the House floor.
Oh, wow.
Representatives physically drop their bills into this box to formally introduce them.
Wow.
It's a bit of a quirky tradition,
Yeah.
but hey, Congress loves its traditions.
I find it oddly charming.
Yeah,
It's like a suggestion box for laws.
it is.
Okay, so the bill's in the hopper.
Right.
It's been introduced.
Yes.
Now,
So-
where does it go from there?
From there, the bill is assigned to a relevant committee.
Okay.
In this case, it went to the House Committee on Ways and Means
Okay.
because it deals with taxation matters.
All right, so the Ways and Means Committee,
Yes.
they're the ones who get to dig into the nitty-gritty of the bill, right? What exactly happens in the committee stage?
This is where things can get intense.
Ooh.
The committee holds hearings, invites experts to weigh in, and debates the merits of the bill.
Okay.
They can propose changes, add amendments, or even completely rewrite parts of the bill. It's a rigorous process.
Sounds like a legislative pressure cooker.
It is.
So they've marked it up, argued it out.
Right.
What happens next?
If the committee gives it the thumbs up,
Uh-huh.
they vote to report it to the full House of Representatives.
Yeah.
That's where that committee report term comes in.
Right.
They issue a report explaining their reasoning for supporting the bill,
Okay.
any changes they made,
Mm-hmm.
and their overall assessment.
So it's like their official stamp of approval.
It is.
And from there, it goes to the full House for a vote.
Yes.
Which, in this case, was that voice vote we talked about.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that brings us to the next step in H.R. 8292's journey,
Okay.
the Senate. But that's a whole other story.
Okay.
And we'll dive into that in part 2 of our deep dive.
Stay tuned, folks. This is just getting interesting. Welcome back. We're picking up our deep dive into H.R. 8292, the Taxpayer Data Protection Act.
Right?
Last we left off, the bill had just cleared the House of Representatives. But we know the Senate is a whole different ballgame.
You're telling me the Senate is known for its
Yeah.
deliberate pace
Uh-huh.
and emphasis on
Yeah.
individual senators' power?
Right.
Things can move a lot slower on that side of Capitol Hill.
So what's the first stop for a bill once it crosses over from the House?
Right.
Does it just get rubber stamped and sent straight to the president's desk?
If only it were that easy.
Right.
First, the bill gets assigned to a relevant Senate committee,
Okay.
just like in the House.
Okay.
And here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Remember that term companion measure from the glossary you provided?
Right. Companion measure.
Yeah.
It's basically the Senate's version of the same bill, right?
That's exactly.
So is there a chance the Senate is already working on something similar to H.R. 8292?
It's possible. If a companion measure exists,
Yeah.
it means there's already some level of interest in the Senate
Okay.
for tackling the same issue.
Right.
That could be a good sign for H.R. 8292's chances.
Okay, so let's say there is a companion measure. Does that mean they just mash the two bills together and call it a day?
Not quite.
Yeah.
Both bills would go through their respective committee processes.
Okay.
And if both are approved,
Yeah.
the Senate leadership would likely try to negotiate a compromise version.
Okay.
It's all about finding a version that satisfies both chambers.
A little legislative give and take.
Exactly.
But what happens if there is no companion measure?
Right.
Does H.R. 8292 just get tossed into the Senate's version of the hopper?
Well, they don't have a literal hopper in the Senate,
Right.
but the bill would start its journey through the Senate committee process.
Okay.
Just like any other bill.
Okay.
They might hold their own hearings, call in expert
Yeah.
witnesses, and potentially make changes.
So even though it sailed through the House,
Right.
the Senate committee could still throw a wrench in the works.
Absolutely. They have the power to make changes, add amendments, or even scrap the whole thing.
Really?
It's a whole new battleground for H.R. 8292.
Speaking of battles,
Yeah.
what about those unanimous consent agreements we saw in the glossary?
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like they have a big impact on how things play out in the Senate.
They're crucial,
Yeah.
especially when you consider how powerful
Right.
individual senators can be.
Yeah.
Remember those filibusters we've all heard about?
Oh, yeah. Those marathon speeches designed to stall a bill,
Exactly.
like a legislative hostage situation.
That's one way to put it.
So,
And it takes a supermajority,
right.
60 out of 100 senators,
Wow.
to break a filibuster and force a vote.
Okay.
That's where unanimous consent agreements come in.
So these agreements are basically a way to avoid those filibuster showdowns.
Exactly. They're like negotiated peace treaties
Okay.
between the majority and minority leaders,
Okay.
setting the terms for debate and potentially even limiting
Right.
the types of amendments that can be proposed.
Wow.
It's all about keeping things moving
Okay.
and avoiding gridlock.
So for H.R. 8292 to have a smooth ride in the Senate,
Right.
the leaders need to strike one of these agreements.
In most cases, yes. If they can't reach an agreement,
Yeah.
things can grind to a halt, and the bill might never see the light of day.
Talk about a legislative traffic jam.
It is.
So let's assume they do manage to hammer out an agreement.
Okay.
What happens next? Is it finally time for a vote?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
It's debate time.
Okay.
Senators get a chance to voice their opinions, propose amendments, and try to sway their colleagues.
Okay.
It can get pretty theatrical.
I can only imagine all those powerful personalities in one room.
It's something to see.
So,
But eventually, yes, they have to vote.
okay.
And just like in the House,
Yeah.
there are different types of votes.
Right.
They could do a voice vote or a roll call vote,
Right.
where each senator's vote is recorded.
Let's play this out. Say, hypothetically, H.R. 8292 actually passes the Senate.
Okay.
Are we home free?
Hold your horses.
All right.
It's not over yet. Remember, the House and Senate are like two separate branches of the legislative tree? Even if they both pass a bill.
Yeah.
It often happens they've made different changes
Right.
during their respective processes.
So now we have two slightly different versions of the same bill floating around.
Exactly.
That seems messy. What happens then?
That's where those conference committees come in.
Oh, okay.
It's like a legislative mashup.
Okay.
They're temporary joint committees
Okay.
made up of members from both the House and the Senate.
Right.
And their job is to iron out those differences.
So they basically have to Frankenstein a single unified version.
It's a good way to put it,
Okay.
that everyone can agree on.
And once they've stitched together this Frankenstein bill,
Yes.
what happens then?
They issue a conference report
Okay.
explaining the changes they made.
Okay.
Then both the House and the Senate have to vote on this final
Right.
unified version.
So it's like a second round of voting, but this time they're voting on a compromise.
Precisely.
Mhm.
And if both chambers approve it,
Yeah.
we're in the home stretch.
I can see the finish line. So what happens next? A ticker tape parade?
Not quite. First, it goes through a process called enrollment.
Okay.
This is where the bill is printed on fancy parchment paper,
Okay.
signed by the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate,
Right.
and officially certified as an accurate version.
Okay.
It's all very official and ceremonial.
They really do love their traditions in Congress, don't they?
It's all part of the pomp and circumstance.
Yes. So,
But yes, once the bill is enrolled,
yeah.
it's finally ready for its grand finale,
Okay.
a trip to the president's desk.
This is it, the moment of truth.
It is.
What are the president's options at this point?
So the president has a few choices.
Okay.
They can sign the bill, and boom,
Right.
it officially becomes law.
Okay.
Or they can choose to veto the bill,
Oh.
which means sending it back to Congress
Right.
with their objections.
So even after all that,
Yeah.
committees, debates, compromises, votes,
I know.
the president can just say, no, not doing it.
That's the power of the veto.
Oh.
But it's not necessarily game over.
Okay.
Congress has one last chance to override the president's veto.
Right.
But it requires a supermajority vote in both chambers,
Uh-huh.
2/3 of the House
Okay.
and 2/3 of the Senate.
Okay.
It's a tough hurdle to overcome,
Yeah.
but it has happened before.
So there's still hope, even if the president throws a wrench in the works.
There is.
Wow. This legislative process is quite a journey.
It is.
But let's not forget what got us here.
Right.
Congressman Jeffries' claims about Elon Musk and taxpayer data.
Exactly.
What's he saying about all of this?
Well, Congressman Jeffries is sticking to his guns,
Okay.
claiming that Elon Musk's alleged access to the federal government's payment system was a blatant invasion of privacy.
Right.
He claims it happened under the radar, with no warning or explanation to the public.
And remember this DOGE effort we keep mentioning. That refers to the time Elon Musk briefly ran Twitter.
Right.
And tried to integrate the cryptocurrency Dogecoin into the platform.
It was a chaotic period.
It was.
And according to Jeffries, that's when this data access allegedly occurred.
So what kind of information are we even talking about here?
Right.
What exactly is in this central payment system?
We don't have all the details.
Okay.
But it's safe to assume it contains a vast amount of sensitive financial data
Right.
about millions of Americans,
Okay.
potentially tax returns, Social Security numbers, bank account info.
Oh my gosh.
It's the kind of stuff that could be incredibly damaging in the wrong hands.
No kidding. And Jeffries is arguing that someone like Elon Musk,
Right.
with his brawling business empire
Wow.
and potential conflicts of interest,
Yeah.
shouldn't have had unchecked access to this kind of data?
That's his main point.
Okay.
He's using H.R. 8292 to try to prevent this from happening again.
Right.
He wants to ensure that anyone accessing the system has gone through rigorous vetting, has no shady financial ties,
Right.
and is fully trained in cybersecurity best practices.
Wow.
He's basically saying, let's lock this system down tight and make sure we're protecting Americans' privacy.
It's a powerful argument.
It is.
So where do we go from here?
Right.
What are the next steps in this saga? We'll dig into that when we come back for the final part of our deep dive. All right, we're back for this final part of our deep dive into the Taxpayer Data Protection Act. And Congressman Hakeem Jeffries' push to shore up data security.
Yes.
We've traced the bill's journey through the House, explored the potential roadblocks in the Senate,
Right.
and even unpacked what this whole situation reveals about data privacy
Absolutely.
in our digital world.
In the digital age.
Yeah, and we've also demystified some of those confusing legislative terms, like
Yes.
the hopper and
Right.
those all-important unanimous consent agreements.
They are important.
Yeah, but there's one term from that glossary we haven't explored yet.
Right.
And it might be the key to understanding the long-term impact of this whole saga.
It might be.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Which term are we talking about?
Enrolled measure.
Enrolled measure.
Yeah, it might not sound as exciting as a filibuster,
Right.
but it marks a pivotal moment in a bill's journey.
Okay, remind me, what exactly does enrolled measure mean?
Well, think of it as a bill's graduation ceremony.
Okay.
It's the final official version printed on parchment paper, signed by the leaders of both chambers,
Right.
and certified as a true and accurate version.
Okay.
It's the culmination of all those debates,
Yeah.
amendments, compromises, and votes we've been discussing.
So it's the bill all dressed up and ready for its close-up with the president.
Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting.
Okay.
Let's imagine for a moment
Okay.
that H.R. 8292 actually makes it through all those Senate hurdles, survives any potential veto attempts,
Why?
and achieves that enrolled measure status.
I'm picturing it now. The bill all proud in its parchment finery.
Yeah.
Ready for its meeting with the president.
Think about what that signifies.
Okay.
It's not just about increased penalties for disclosing taxpayer information.
Right.
It's about setting a precedent,
Okay.
sending a clear message that Congress is serious about protecting sensitive data.
It's like drawing a line in the sand.
Yeah.
Unauthorized access is not okay,
Right.
and there will be consequences.
Precisely. And that message has ripple effects
Okay.
far beyond this one bill.
Okay.
It could influence future legislation, shape policy decisions,
Right.
and even impact how private companies handle our data.
Wow. So we're talking about potentially shaping the future of data privacy in the digital age.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's why Congressman Jeffries' call to action is so important.
Okay.
He's not just asking people to support this specific bill. He's inviting them to be part of a larger conversation
Right.
about data security,
Right.
privacy, and accountability.
He's saying, don't just sit on the sidelines. Yeah.
Get involved, make your voice heard.
Exactly. And that's where you come in.
Right.
This deep dive has given you a glimpse behind the legislative curtain, but what happens next is up to you.
Wow.
Will you follow H.R. 8292's progress?
Yeah.
Will you contact your representatives?
These are great questions for you to consider.
They are.
But here's one final thought to ponder.
Yeah.
If Congressman Jeffries' allegations are true,
Yeah.
and Elon Musk did gain unauthorized access to sensitive taxpayer data,
Right.
what does that say about the systems we have in place
Yeah.
to protect our information?
Right.
Are they strong enough?
That's a good question.
Are they transparent enough?
Yeah.
Are we as citizens doing enough
Right.
to hold those in power accountable?
Those are questions we all need to be asking because in the digital age,
Yeah.
data is power.
Right.
And the fight for data privacy is in many ways a fight for control over our own lives.
Wow.
This deep dive has given you a glimpse into that fight.
But it's just a beginning.
A lot to think about. This has been The Deep Dive, your shortcut to being well-informed. Thanks for joining us.